My family said everyone I failed. I came to my sister's wedding to find my name card on the farthest table. I sat quietly, then her fiancé looked at me. Wait, are you Nellie Mitchell, that at Millionaire? They turned pale. Well, let's go. I was sitting at my home office debugging some code for a client project when my laptop chimed with a new email notification. The sound made me look up from my screen, and I noticed it had come to my old Gmail account, the one I'd set up back in high school and barely used anymore. The subject line caught my attention immediately: wedding invitation, Sarah and Michael. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the sender's name, Sarah Johnson, my younger sister. I clicked on the email, and my screen filled with an elegant wedding invitation decorated with soft pink roses and gold accents. The formal script read: Sarah Johnson and Michael Rohr request the pleasure of your company at their wedding celebration on Saturday, June 15th at 6 p.m. at the Grand Ballroom, Riverside Hotel, our hometown. Below the formal invitation was a personal message from Sarah. Hi Nellie, I hope this email finds you well. I'm sorry to reach out through your old email address, but I don't have your current phone number or home address. I found this email in my old contacts from high school. I'm getting married next month, and despite everything that happened between our family, I really want you to be there. It would mean a lot to me to have my only sister at my wedding. I know it's been over 10 years since we last spoke, but I hope you'll consider coming. Please let me know if you can make it. Sarah. I stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling a mix of emotions I hadn't expected. It had been 12 years since I'd last spoken to any of my family members. 12 years since I'd walked out of that house and never looked back. Sarah would be 28 now. When I left home, she was just 16. I wondered what she looked like now, whether she'd changed much. The last time I saw her, she was this spoiled teenager who always got everything she wanted. I leaned back in my chair and thought about whether I should respond. Part of me wanted to just delete the email and pretend I never saw it. But another part of me was curious. Sarah was getting married, and she wanted me there. Maybe she'd grown up. Maybe things had changed. After sitting there for about 20 minutes, I decided to write back. I kept it simple. Hi Sarah, congratulations on your engagement. I'll be there for your wedding. Looking forward to seeing you after all these years. Nellie. I hit send before I could change my mind. The next few weeks passed quickly as I prepared for the trip. I had to clear my schedule, which meant rescheduling some client meetings and pushing back a few project deadlines. My assistant helped me organize everything. I spent some time thinking about what gift to buy for Sarah and her fiancé. I didn't want to go overboard, but I also didn't want to look cheap. Finally, I settled on a beautiful crystal vase from Tiffany. Elegant, expensive enough to show I cared, but not so flashy that it would draw too much attention. It cost me about $1,500, which wasn't much for me these days, but I figured it was a nice gesture. The day before the wedding, I flew back to my hometown for the first time in a decade. I took a taxi from the airport to the Marriott downtown. After checking in, I unpacked my suitcase and hung up the dress I brought for the wedding. It was a simple navy blue dress, well tailored, but not flashy. I'd learned over the years that sometimes the most expensive clothes were the ones that looked the most understated. That evening, I ordered room service and tried to prepare myself mentally for seeing my family again. I wondered if my parents would be surprised to see me. I wondered if they'd changed at all, or if they were still the same people who'd kicked their 18-year-old daughter out of the house with nowhere to go. I thought about calling Sarah to let her know I was in town, but decided against it. I'd see her tomorrow at the wedding. That would be soon enough. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run around the downtown area. After my run, I went back to the hotel, showered, and spent the afternoon relaxing. I read a book, watched some TV, and tried not to think too much about what the evening would bring. Around 4 o'clock, I started getting ready. I did my makeup carefully, not too much, but enough to look polished. I styled my hair in a simple updo and put on the navy dress with a pair of pearl earrings I bought a few years ago. Looking at myself in the hotel room mirror, I thought I looked good, professional, put together, but not trying too hard. I grabbed Sarah's gift from the dresser and called a taxi to take me to the Riverside Hotel. The Riverside Hotel looked exactly the same as I remembered from my childhood. My parents had brought us here for dinner a few times when I was younger, usually for special occasions. The grand ballroom was on the second floor, and I could hear music and laughter coming from inside as I walked down the hallway. As I stepped into the room, I immediately started recognizing faces. There was my Aunt Margaret, who looked older but still had that same bright smile. Uncle Bob was standing near the bar, his hair completely gray now. My cousin Jennifer was talking to a group of people by the windows. She must be in her 30s now, probably married with kids. I walked further into the room, and that's when people started noticing me. Aunt Margaret was the first to approach. "Nellie, oh my goodness, is that really you?" she said, rushing over to give me a hug. But as she pulled back, I noticed something strange in her expression. It wasn't just surprise. There was something else there. Pity, maybe. "Hi, Aunt Margaret. You look great," I said, forcing a smile. "Oh, honey, you look." She paused, looking me up and down. "You look good, too. Really good. Actually, better than I expected. Better than she expected." What did that mean? Before I could ask, Uncle Bob had joined us. "Nellie, well, I'll be damned. Sarah said you might come, but we weren't sure. How are you doing, kiddo?" "I'm doing well, Uncle Bob. How have you been?" "Can't complain, still working at the plant. You know, same old, same old." He looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot. "So, how are things with you? Did you ever find a decent place to live? Your mom mentioned you were having some trouble with that, you know, finding an apartment and all. And work. Are you still looking for a steady job?" What the hell was he talking about? I owned my own company. I lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs. Why would he think I was having trouble finding an apartment? "I'm doing fine, Uncle Bob. Really fine." Aunt Margaret leaned closer and lowered her voice. "And what about that husband of yours? Did things work out with him, or?" I was completely lost. "What husband?" They exchanged a look that I didn't understand. "Well, we just heard." "Never mind, dear. We're just glad you're here and that you're okay," Aunt Margaret said, patting my arm in a way that felt patronizing. More relatives started approaching, cousins I hadn't seen since high school, family friends who remembered me as a teenager, and every single one of them had the same look in their eyes. That pitying look, like they felt sorry for me. My cousin Jennifer came over with her husband, a guy I didn't recognize. "Nellie, wow, it's been forever. How are you holding up?" she asked. "Holding up? I'm doing great, Jennifer. How are you?" I'm good. Married now, obviously," she said, showing off her wedding ring. 2 kids, living in the suburbs. You know, the whole American dream thing." She paused. "Are you still? I mean, did you ever get back on your feet after everything?" I was getting more confused and frustrated by the minute. What divorce? What job situation? What was everyone talking about? "I think there's been some misunderstanding," I started to say, but Jennifer was already backing away. "Well, I'm just glad you made it to the wedding. Sarah will be so happy to see you." As she walked away, I stood there trying to process what was happening. Everyone was acting like I was some kind of charity case, like they expected me to be broke and desperate. Where were they getting this information? I decided to stop trying to figure it out and just find my seat. I walked around the room looking for a table with my name on it. I checked the tables near the front. Nothing. I looked at the tables in the middle of the room. Still nothing. I walked toward the head table where I could see my parents and Sarah in her white wedding dress. As I got closer, my heart started beating faster. It had been 10 years since I had seen any of them. My father saw me first. He was wearing a black tuxedo and looked older, his hair mostly gray now. When our eyes met, his expression changed from casual conversation to something I couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe, or discomfort. "Dad," I said as I approached the table. "Nellie," he stood up and gave me a stiff hug. "You came." Of course I came. Sarah invited me. My mother turned around then, and I saw her face for the first time in a decade. She looked older, more worn than I remembered, but she was smiling. It wasn't a genuine smile, though. It was the fake smile she used to put on for company when I was a kid. "Nellie, sweetheart, we're so glad you could make it," she said, standing up to hug me. The hug felt as fake as her smile. Then Sarah turned around. She looked beautiful in her wedding dress, elegant and happy, but when she saw me, her expression changed to something that looked almost disappointed. "Nellie," she said, looking me up and down critically. You look like yourself, I guess. Kind of plain and simple, like always." She paused and then added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "But I'm happy you're here. At least now you get to see how successful people actually celebrate weddings." The comment hit me like a slap in the face, but I kept my expression neutral. This was Sarah's wedding day, and I wasn't going to cause a scene. "Congratulations, Sarah. You look beautiful," I said simply. My mother quickly stepped in, taking my arm. "Come on, honey. Let me show you to your table." She led me back through the ballroom, past all the other tables, all the way to the back corner where I'd found my name card. "Here you are, dear," she said, still with that fake smile. "The closest tables are for the closest family members and the most successful guests. You understand?" I understood perfectly. They put me in the back, as far away from the important people as possible. I sat down at my assigned table and watched the wedding ceremony begin. As I sat there surrounded by strangers and feeling completely out of place, my mind started wandering back to the past. I began remembering why I hadn't spoken to my family in over 10 years. Growing up, it was always crystal clear that Sarah was the favorite child. Our parents never even tried to hide it. When Sarah was 7 and decided she wanted to play piano, they bought a brand new upright piano and paid for private lessons twice a week. When I was 14 and asked if I could take the free programming classes at school after hours, my mother said I should focus on more practical skills, like cooking and cleaning. Every birthday, Sarah got elaborate parties with themes and decorations. My birthdays were usually just cake after dinner, if they remembered at all. Sarah got a car for her 16th birthday, a cute little red Honda Civic. When I turned 16, they told me I could walk or take the bus, but I found my own way. I discovered the free programming club at school and threw myself into learning everything I could. I was good at it, really good. The teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, said I had natural talent and encouraged me to keep learning. I started helping neighbors fix their computers and set up their phones, earning $20 or $30 here and there. When I graduated high school, I had applied to several colleges on my own. I'd worked hard to get good grades, hoping for scholarships. The day after my graduation, my parents called me into the living room for a talk. I thought maybe they wanted to congratulate me or discuss my college plans. "Nellie, you're 18 now," my father said. "You're an adult, and it's time you started acting like one. We don't have money to send you to college. We need to focus our resources on Sarah's education," my mother added. "She's got real potential. Besides, you need to move out. We can't have you living here like some freeloader while Sarah's trying to focus on her studies. She needs her space." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Move out? Where am I supposed to go?" "That's your problem to figure out," my mother said coldly. "You're 18. You should have been thinking about this already." I begged them for just a few weeks to save up money for a deposit on an apartment, but they wouldn't budge. My mother said I had until the end of the week. 3 days later, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and a backpack. My friend Jessica's parents were out of town, so she let me stay at her house while I figured things out. A week after moving in with Jessica, I got the acceptance letters I'd been waiting for. I'd been accepted to 4 colleges, and one of them, a school in the neighboring state, offered me a full scholarship plus room and board. When Jessica's parents came back from vacation, they found out what had happened and were horrified. Mr. and Mrs. Chen had known me since elementary school and always treated me like a second daughter. They gave me $3,000 to help me get settled and drove me to the airport themselves. I remember Mrs. Chen hugging me goodbye and saying, "Make us proud, sweetheart. Show them what they're missing." College was hard at first. I worked 2 part-time jobs while maintaining my grades, but I loved every minute of it. I was studying computer science and finally felt like I was where I belonged. In my 3rd year, I met David in my advanced programming class. He was smart, funny, and shared my passion for technology. We started studying together, then dating, and by senior year we were inseparable. We got married right after graduation, a simple ceremony at the courthouse with just a few friends present. I took his last name, Mitchell, and we moved to Silicon Valley to start our careers. We both got jobs at tech companies, but our real dream was to create something of our own. We spent our evenings and weekends working on a revolutionary piece of software that would streamline database management for large corporations. After 2 years of development, we had something incredible. We pitched it to several major companies and ended up selling it to IBM for $12 million. $12 million. With that money, we started our own software development company. We were young, ambitious, and suddenly very wealthy. Our company grew quickly, taking on bigger and bigger clients. Within 5 years, we were worth over $50 million combined. But success couldn't save our marriage. We grew apart as we focused more on business than on each other. After 8 years together, we realized we were better as business partners than as husband and wife. We divorced amicably, splitting our assets equally. David and I remained friends and continued running the company together. Now, at 30, I was worth about $30 million personally. I owned a beautiful house, drove a luxury car, and my company was respected throughout the industry. I'd been featured in several tech magazines and had even given a few keynote speeches at conferences. But my family knew none of this. They had no idea who I'd become or what I'd accomplished. I was pulled back to the present when the wedding ceremony ended and people started clapping. My parents stood up at the head table, and my father took the microphone. Thank you all for being here to celebrate Sarah and Michael's special day, he began. As Sarah's father, I couldn't be prouder of the woman she's become. He went on about Sarah's accomplishments, her marketing degree, her job at an advertising agency, her wonderful personality. Then my mother took the microphone and gushed about Michael, the groom, and how perfect he was for Sarah. Michael's parents spoke next, thanking everyone for coming and welcoming Sarah to their family. Just as my father was about to wrap up the speeches, someone from the back of the room shouted, "What about Nellie? She should say something, too." I froze. I could see my parents' faces change. They clearly didn't want this to happen. Sarah looked annoyed, but the crowd was looking at me expectantly, and my father couldn't really refuse without looking rude. "Of course," he said with a forced smile. "Nellie, would you like to say a few words?" Every eye in the room turned to me as I stood up and walked toward the front. My heart was pounding, but I kept my expression calm. Michael, the groom, handed me the microphone with a smile, but just as I was about to take it, he paused and looked at me more closely. "Wait a minute," he said, still holding the microphone close to his mouth so everyone could hear. "Are you Nellie Mitchell? The Nellie Mitchell who owns Mitchell Tech Solutions?" The entire ballroom went silent. I smiled and nodded. "Yes, that's me." Michael's face lit up with genuine excitement. "Oh my God, I can't believe it. You're like a legend in the tech industry. I've read about your work in Forbes and TechCrunch. This is incredible." He was still speaking into the microphone, so his words echoed throughout the silent ballroom. I could see my parents and Sarah frozen at the head table, their faces showing complete shock. Everyone else in the room was staring at me with wide eyes. "I'm so honored to meet you," Michael continued. "Your database management software revolutionized how we handle enterprise data and Mitchell Tech Solutions. I mean, you've worked with Google, Microsoft, Amazon. This is unreal." The room erupted in whispers and murmurs. I took the microphone from Michael, who was practically beaming. "Thank you, Michael. That's very kind." I looked out at the crowd, then at my family. "I just want to say congratulations to Sarah and Michael. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness together." I kept my speech short and sweet, then handed the microphone back and started walking toward my table. But before I could sit down, my mother appeared at my side. "Nellie, sweetheart," she said in the sweetest voice I'd ever heard her use. "Why don't you come sit with us at the main table? We have room for you with the family." I looked at her fake smile and shook my head. "No thanks, Mom. I'm comfortable where I am." I returned to my table in the back corner, and as I walked, I could hear everyone whispering about me. The elderly woman sitting next to me, who I had learned was my great-aunt Helen, leaned over. "Dear, I had no idea who you were," she said. "Your parents told everyone you were struggling. They said you lived in some rundown apartment, worked at a dead-end job, and had married some alcoholic drug addict who left you with nothing." Everything suddenly made sense. The pitying looks, the questions about finding an apartment and a job, the comments about my husband. My parents had been telling everyone I was a complete failure. I just smiled and shook my head. "People say a lot of things, Aunt Helen." The reception continued, but I could feel everyone's eyes on me. People kept coming over to introduce themselves and ask about my work. Some of the younger guests recognized my name from tech blogs and wanted to take selfies. I stayed for about another hour, making polite conversation and watching Sarah and Michael dance. But the whole atmosphere felt toxic to me. I'd had enough. I quietly slipped out of the ballroom and called a taxi back to my hotel. Once I was in my room, I immediately went online and booked a flight home for the next morning. I just wanted to get out of there. Around 9 o'clock that evening, my phone rang. It was an unknown local number. "Hello? Hello, Nellie, it's Mom. I don't know how Michael got this number. He got it from some of his friends in the tech industry." Her voice was sickeningly sweet. "Honey, we need to talk. Your father and I would love to have you over for dinner tomorrow before you leave. We want to reconnect with you." I laughed, actually laughed out loud. "Really? You want to reconnect now? After you found out I have money?" "That's not. We always cared about you. We just didn't know how to reach you." "You didn't know how to reach me? You didn't care enough to try." "There's a difference, Mom." She started making excuses, talking about how they thought I wanted space and how they were respecting my wishes. "Cut the crap," I said. "I know what you told everyone about me." Helen filled me in. "You told the whole family I was living in some dump, married to an addict, struggling to find work. You painted me as a complete loser. We were just worried about you. We didn't know what was happening in your life. So you made up stories? You told people I was a failure because that's what you wanted to believe." My mother started stammering, trying to backtrack. We were joking around. You know how family talks." I'm done with this conversation, and I'm done with all of you, I said firmly. Don't contact me again. I hung up the phone and immediately blocked the number. Within 15 minutes, my phone was buzzing with text messages from other unknown numbers, my father, Sarah, even some cousins I barely knew. They all wanted to talk now that they knew I was successful. I blocked every single number without reading most of the messages. The next morning, I flew home feeling relieved. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I got another email from Sarah. This one wasn't sweet or apologetic like her wedding invitation had been. Nellie, it started. I've done some research and found out exactly how rich you are. You're worth millions, and meanwhile, your family is struggling. We took out a $100,000 loan for my wedding, and it's only fair that you pay it back. For someone like you, that's pocket change. But for us, it's everything. You owe us this much after abandoning your family for 10 years. We're your family, and family helps family. I expect you to transfer the money within the next week. I stared at the email in disbelief. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. They wanted me to pay for Sarah's wedding because I could afford it. I wrote back immediately, Sarah, I'm not paying for your wedding or any other expenses you rack up. You want to know why? Because for 10 years, you and our parents called me a loser behind my back. You told everyone I was a failure living in poverty, married to an addict. Well, guess what? Losers don't help their families. If I'm such a failure, why would you want my money? Don't contact me again. If you do, I'll be speaking to my lawyer about harassment charges. I hit send and then blocked her email address, too. That was 6 months ago, and I haven't heard from any of them since. I assume the threat of legal action scared them off. Now I'm back to my normal life, running my company, working on new projects, and enjoying my success. I'm not bitter about what happened. Honestly, I'm grateful that wedding showed me exactly who my family is, and it confirmed that I made the right choice cutting them out of my life 10 years ago. Some people aren't worth keeping in your life, even if they're related to you. I learned that lesson a long time ago, and Sarah's wedding just reminded me how true it still is. I'm doing just fine without them, and I always will be.